Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future Focused podcast. Let's try that again. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future Focused Admin podcast. I just
Yeah.
fucked that up again. Let's do that again. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future Focus Admin podcast. I am your host, Candice Birmingham, and my co-host here is Jessica McBride. So today we're up to episode 3, and today we're going to talk about salary transparency. And Jess and I were talking about this because, well, it's important, and also it's so varied between, APAC region, North American region, Europe, UK, and obviously I lived in the UK for 6 years, so I have a lot of insight over there. And just, yeah, we want to kind of have this conversation and kind of push the importance of talking about your salary and not making it a secret and not making it a dirty word. Because I remember when I worked at a very well known media company in London, and the girls and I were discussing at an EA lunch of how much we earned. And I said what I was earning, and I earned more than the chairman's assistant. Now, admittedly, I had more experience than her, and the idea was that the chairman brought her in to build her, to grow her, and he wanted her to get enough experience and then move her out of being in that role. So he wanted her to learn that, get the contacts, everything, and then move her on to, she went on to do something else in media. But I remember she was just mortified. She was just like, well, no, because I'm at chairman level, I should be paid the most. And I was like, well, no, I have had a 15-year career in this and I'm more experienced. Like you sometimes come to me for help for this kind of stuff. So um, it's interesting, and neither of us are offended by it or anything because obviously we didn't know. But it was just like I do think we should have these salaries. Oh, and the other fun part of that is when we went to HR about our salaries, they always said to each and every one of us, "You're the highest paid EA in the company." Every time, all of us, we get the same line. So I think yeah, actually talk about it. Now the side of it is legalities around it. What's the legals like in Canada around that?
Oh, it's completely legal. Like they can't punish you for discussing your salaries. I think it's even the same in the United States. My entry to understanding why it's important to talk about salaries is I remember I had taken a job. So my first real career job was I worked for Enterprise, like the rental car company. And I started as like a part-time hourly like car rep where I'm like signing contracts and doing that. And I made $10 an hour. And I lived in South Texas, and that seemed like a really good pay for somebody with my experience. And then I got promoted into their fleet department, which was in a bigger city. It was in Austin, so higher cost of living. And I just took what they offered me, which was $13 an hour. And I thought I was hot shit. Like, I really thought look at me making money. And that is not very much money. And a few months after I started, another person came in. She had no like admin experience. And one day we're talking. I actually trained her. Then we're chatting at some point in time. And, I come to find out that she was making $17 an hour when they had told me 13 is the highest we can do. And I didn't negotiate. They just said, like, we're offering you $13. Like, that's like the highest we can do. And, and I come to find out that she's getting 17. And I was like, I don't understand. And she's like, well, I asked. And I was like, what? Like, you can do that? And because they don't teach us that. And it really like opened my eyes going forward. That it is a matter of like asking. And when I moved to Canada, I would say like, my first job in Canada that I got was an executive assistant role, and they were paying me 35,000 Canadian a year, and that's not very much money at all. I would say it's maybe like 28,000 US as an equivalent. Definitely not something that you can live on. So I changed jobs really quickly. I'm very much someone who always preaches like chase that dollar, change jobs, because these organizations are not on your side. They are not interested in paying you a living wage. They are scrimping and trying to save as much as they can on something like an executive assistant. So I think it's so important that we are discussing these things because otherwise we can't know. You know, we lived in a society that's told us we're not allowed, we should discuss these things, that it's taboo, that it's tacky. That works for them. That works for the people in power. Because if we're not discussing it, then we're in the dark and we don't actually know. And if we feel like there's like a taboo thing with like finding out what my coworker makes, like that only aids them. I feel really strongly about organizations having transparent pay bands. Is a lot, you see this in a lot of organizations that are doing things right, where it's okay for a product manager, we're going to pay between this much and this much. And you know that like maybe your peer, it's like a $20,000 range. And it's like, okay, like because my peer was leveled differently than me, through this job matrix, they make more, but you know it's not going to be more than $20,000 more than what you make. And it keeps parity within an organization in a way that you're not going to get without like set pay transparency. And when we look at, you know, the salaries that they're paying executive assistants these days, and we were kind of talking about it ahead of time, um, it's really, really obvious just how much work they're getting out of us for such a low wage these days. Because when the executive assistant career became, you know, common, there wasn't as much responsibility. There was entry level jobs, and it really was, I'm managing a schedule, and there's probably things like getting coffee and doing tasks like that. And I don't know anybody that works like that anymore. We're all strategic business partners who are, you know, helping guide the company, and we're offering, you know, our advice on issues. And, you know, every founder that I work with tells me, I want a second brain. I want a second brain. I don't need an assistant. I need someone who thinks the way that I think, which is interesting because they think their brain is worth $250,000 a year. So why is it that our brain is only worth, let's see, what is the average rate for a salary in the United States for an executive assistant is 67,000. The United States, huge country, that's going to be a broad range. So in some cities, you're going to see like the average is more like 90K, but for every, you know, city that's 90K, it's, there's, you know, small town Texas where they're paying you 45,000 or, you know, lower. um the more and more that I'm taking with admins right now, with the economy contracting the way that it is nobody wants to guarantee hours to you anymore. Nobody wants to give you a full-time role. It's 15 hours and it's not even a guarantee. And I think this is really a pivotal moment for our industry, and and part of the importance of talking about these salaries is understanding you deserve more. Your skills are very unique, and the level of talent that we see is it's generalist. We are generalists, and that we can do any task that you give us, because it's not about the knowledge that we have, but how we use it and the way that we're utilizing things. So 67,000 is the average in the United States. What is the average in Australia?
I would love to give you an average, but just separately to that, and I do have two salary guides in front of me, but also on the 30th of March in 2020 in Australia, they passed a legislation requiring firms with more than 100 employees to publish their gender pay gap um,
Nice.
from early next year, which would have been 2021. Um, so in 2023, Australia's national gender pay gap was 13.3%, according to official data. So I love this in that it's exposing that. But then the next line on that is our current projection is it will take another 26 years to close the gender pay gap.
There was a similar
Like
report for the United States. Yeah, it was like another, like I think it's like 2060 or something before the gender pay gap is
that.
closed.
It, how? Why is it taking so long? If this is the kind of steps that we're putting in place to have this openness and these conversations around salary, why should it take 26 years to catch up? Why not now? Why not big corporates take these opportunities to then open up and say, okay, this is also another reason why I'm such a big, what's the word, advocate for admin departments, so that you're
Hmm.
not like into someone else's department. There is an actual admin department with its own budget, with its own cost center, with its own L&D budget, like all of those things. That's why I'm so pro admin department in industries. But I just can't actually get my head around 26 years. 26 years.
Yep.
Like that. I don't know if I'll be here in 26 years. Like, that is just insane. Okay, that's depressing. So moving on. Okay, so some of the salary survey results that we have for an executive assistant from some of the recruitment firms that I work with in Australia is so personal assistant to general manager. And just to clarify, a personal assistant over here can mean executive assistant. They just call it personal assistant. Whereas personal assistant in the UK, in my experience, was someone that worked in a personal capacity. So, for instance, my old boss had me as the executive assistant who worked in the business and then had a personal assistant that worked on her private life because it was just as busy.
Mm-hmm.
So, just for anyone listening, personal assistant in Australia can mean part of the business, does mean part of the business. Okay, so personal assistant to general manager, junior level, 75 to 85. PA to general manager, intermediate, 85 to 95. PA to general manager, senior, 90 to 100. Okay, fair enough. Like, can get that. Executive assistant to director, which is higher. We'll just go to the senior ones, 100 to 110. So just a little bit higher. And then executive assistant to C-suite, tier one, 130 to 160. I have not seen many jobs like that in a while. And
Yeah.
to be honest, I'm working with some admins right now who are in the 150K bracket who cannot find a job in that bracket. Like, it's just so obsolete now. Like, and it just saddens me that they're like, oh, I'm willing to drop to 130. Like, a woman shouldn't have to drop her pay again. But at tier two, which is a level down, 110 to 130. Again, don't agree with that. Tier three, 100 to 130. So I think that when they did this, they were still quite high because at the moment the salaries just aren't there at that level in Sydney. Sorry, I should say that this is Sydney money. So that's one. And then Lotus People, who's one of my favorite recruiters because they just treat office support professionals like they should be. Here we go. Okay, so they've got everything from receptionist to team assistant to office assistant. I'm just going to go all the way down to personal assistant, 80 to 90, executive assistant, 90 to 100, and senior executive assistant, 100 to 140. That's more where I'm seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came home to Australia in 2021, it was August 2021, we still had the borders locked. So we had a serious issue around trying to get people. And they were throwing money, like team assistants, junior burgers that were coming in at the beginning of their career were getting 100K. I didn't get 100K till I was at CEO level. They were getting 100K sign-on bonus to actually turn up. Now, you can't take that off them. Now they're in. That's how they got
in. Exactly.
And but the issue was what they did was they stayed for 3 months and jumped. And why not? They collected, they cleaned up. I mean, if I was a junior burger, maybe I would have done that too. I wouldn't. I would never have the guts to do that. But now it's an issue because if you were to try and go in at junior level, you're back to, well, let's have a look. Let's call it admin assistant, team assistant, 75 to 90. And no sign-on bonus, nothing like that, and you probably have more work, more everything. Whereas back when we were candidate short market, they were literally like, I'll take you if you've got one foot, one arm, just we need people. So it's been a huge turnaround in the Australian market. Depressing news, actually, because we've had globally, everyone's had cuts, especially in the tech industry, and we have a really cool tech industry over here. We have like Atlassian, one of the biggest tech companies in the world, is here. Its head office is here, and for the first time, had cuts. I think it was the first time ever, and they were just And they even, I do love their transparency though, because they were like, we're not saying that the company isn't doing well and we have to make these cuts. We're saying we're investing more in people that like not add more value, but like I guess they're investing in more tech than anything else. So I think what they got rid of was your HR stuff, your talent stuff, your, you know, those kind of stuff, which funnily enough you need to get your tech stuff. But anyway, that's their prerogative. But yeah, it's the first time I've kind of seen the market. It's not bad, but it's just definitely not good. And as I said to you, if I what was to go back into being an EA now, I would need to go back to London because I, as a single woman in Sydney, could not afford to live on a salary that I would get as an executive assistant here. It's
Yeah.
just insanely
Well, that's by
undervalued
design.
considering what, yeah, and what I would bring. And as being a business owner myself, of having to go through all this to work alongside with a CEO, even if I went to like a chief of staff role, maybe I'd get like 200K. But like, it's not a lot considering what I'm bringing to the table.
No,
And it just really annoys me that our industry is not valued financially for what we bring. And, you know, I'm going to pass it over to you because I just get so annoyed about this. But I'm like, right now, I'm writing a piece on future proofing your career. Um, and I'm just saying like all this stuff about it, like saying, don't be afraid of AI and all the things that we're preaching and things like that, and steps to be doing and things like that. But I'm just like, look at all of these skills that we bring. Like, as I'm going through it, I'm like, man, we are incredible. What we bring to organizations, be it both our tech skills, but our EQ skills and what we're able to read in a room and what we're able to predict and what we're able to, like, seeking opportunities for growth for yourself, for the company, for seeing deals, networking and saying, hey, they're doing this, we should work at this and that. Like, there's so much more to this career than it is valued for. And now I'm going to get off my soapbox and step down for a
let me
minute.
step on it. Okay. I'm just gonna warn anybody who's listening right now, if you're not a raging feminist who wants to hear a rant, you can just fast forward a good minute, 3 minutes. Admins are not paid well because it is a woman dominated field. In the United States, 83% of executive assistants or administrative professionals are women. And the idea of the admin position came, and I don't remember what year, it was like women getting the right to work in the United States. Remember, everything I say is with the North American lens. Um, so we get the right to work and we are working in offices. And there was something called pin money, PIN, and that was their joke phrase for basically what they paid women. And it was so that, women just like had a little bit of like money to play with. So they're not important enough to have a real salary. So we were set up to fail from the beginning because it was never that this is money that we could live on. It was, this is our money to supplement our husband's income. So when we see these salaries like in the United States where it's like I couldn't live alone on that. In Canada, a report just came out that you need to make $40 an hour to be able to afford an apartment in the Toronto area. Not a whole lot of admin jobs paying $40 an hour. Um, and because people don't really understand, because I do think that there's a very specific person who does well in the executive assistant or admin role. And it's not just our ability to run a schedule, it's all the layers of thinking that go in to the decisions that we make. There was an article that was shared earlier today by Helani Ellis of Exceptional Admins. And there's a CEO of a new tech company, AI tech company. I'm not even going to say his name because he's not worth it. He has this new program and he's like, it's going to replace executive assistants. And he's like, I can have my AI call and make a dinner reservation for me. And I'm like, cool. Do you really think that that's the only value that I bring is my ability to pick up the phone? Because my value as an assistant is all of the layers that go into planning what restaurant I'm going to call. It is I recognize that you're in the city that everybody drives, so you're probably going to need a restaurant with a parking lot. You don't like loud restaurants, so I'm going to need something a little bit more quiet. The person that you're hosting is a vegan, so I want to make sure that they have 3 to 5 choices to choose from on the menu, so they're not just forced to get like the garden salad. These are the details that I get paid well to manage. It is my ability to view the company holistically and connect the dots. When you're talking to me, I'm receiving information and I'm piling it away in my little brain, and that I'm going to go into a filing cabinet later on and pull out all that data that I have on you. And I'm going to be able to, anticipate your needs in a way that AI is never going to be able to, because you can't do that. He cannot recognize in his organization his own practices. He couldn't tell you that he doesn't like loud restaurants and that, he actually gets overwhelmed. But I can, because I've sat across from this person and know that they get crabby in a loud restaurant. So I think it's so interesting how and there was a line in it where it said something about, executive assistants, at best, like, save you time, and like sometimes they become your friend. And it's like, you would never say that about a male dominated industry. There is no way that you would look me in the eye and say, "Ah, those software engineers." At best, they get us to the finish line a little faster, and sometimes they become your friend. Nobody's here to be your friend. Okay, we're here for paychecks, and I cannot pay my bills with our friendship. I can get along with anybody that I work with, and I have, and it doesn't mean that I'm friends with them. It means that I'm an adult who can do my job. So it's so short-sighted to see organizations be like, we need admins, we don't need assistants. And so much of what we talk about in terms of like the way that AI is shifting our industry is, yeah, you see bad actors and bad people like this that just they are in it to save money at the end of the day, which is funny because, like I said, we're talking about the average salary of an executive assistant. Let's talk about the average salary of a CEO in the United States being $850,000 a year. I would be willing to bet that AI probably makes better decisions than most CEOs, because I think we recognize that most companies that fail have a CEO that was leading the helm and, making the decisions along the way. So I maybe that's where we start. Maybe we can start getting rid of a CEO instead of the admin, because frankly, as an admin, I've worked alongside the CEO. I've learned how the way that they think and the decisions that they make. Maybe I just start feeding that into AI and I let it make the choices for me. And congrats, I now run a company. So once again, it really is, I don't want to like not acknowledge that there are men in our industry, but like I said, the numbers really speak for themselves. 83% women. And it's the same reason that you see nurses and teachers unionizing and fighting for their rights and higher pay. And it's why admins should be unionized. But like, it's really, we've been taken advantage of and ignored and dismissed because it is a woman dominated industry, and society has worked so hard to make us small so that we don't stand up and fight for ourselves. Like, I remember the first time I asked for a raise, and like, I'm a nervous laugher, so like I know that like I was like grinning like a madman like the entire time, like asking. And I just remember him like doing the math and him being like, "That's over 100K a year." And I said, "Yeah, I know. Like, I think that I'm worth that. I think that ultimately the time that I save you and the work that I get done and the way that I can anticipate the needs of an entire organization, that's a very unique skill set. And I should be rewarded for that." Like,
Yeah.
I have no problem saying that I'm worth the money. I mean, I'd love to make salary, but I'd like to make it in Canada. Um, we
Yes,
definitely
Jessica
don't
looked
have.
at property prices in Sydney over the weekend, and yeah, she's not moving here anytime soon.
I said, what in the world? Because like I'm used to Toronto real estate, and like that's pretty bad. I don't live in Toronto. I live outside Toronto. But yeah, like $2 million for like a house, just
Yeah,
like a shack, like a
not a good
small
house.
house,
Yeah,
not a good house.
not a good house. No, 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 just a
No,
Yeah.
Just a house. See, nobody can live single on these incomes. And
No.
I know for a long time when I was in these different executive assistant organization or groups, they'd be like, we don't ever want to say like that's not a good pay, or like, because you never know, that could be a really good pay for somebody else. No, I'm here to say this. If you're getting paid $52,000 a year to be an executive assistant, I don't give a shit where you are. You are underpaid. You are underutilized. You can make more if you go freelance and you become an independent contractor. I certainly was in that situation when I got laid off, where I was making around 90K US, which translated into about 100 Canadian, which was really lovely. And I realized very quickly after I got laid off that those new jobs, or finding a new job that was going to pay a comparable amount, they were very few and far between. And most of them meant that I would need to drive into Toronto, which would be like adding an hour and a half commute to my life, which I don't want.
Yeah.
And then it was like every job that I was getting brought, that were like within where I live, was like 40% lower than what I was making. And I can't do this job without the emotional cushion that comes with a lot of money, because like I need to be able to be made to cry by a CEO and then go and dry my tears with the dollars as I go on vacation. Like I need to be well compensated to be able to give a shit. And I think that's, I was an independent contractor when I was working for the CEO. And when it came to like, I interviewed for a couple different jobs, and it was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I don't want to work in an office again. I don't want to go work for someone and be expected to get their coffee, because all the jobs were like in office, and it was just like older men, basically CEOs. And I was like, I can't be called kiddo one more time in my career. Like, I'm just not willing to deal with that. And that's why I ended up
I don't think
becoming
I've ever been called kiddo. I think that must be an
Oh
American thing.
my God. Oh my God. My last like in office job before the pandemic, it was like everybody was a boomer. I was probably one of two people like under 50. And the men they just called me kiddo. They talked to me about
Wow.
their, like, if I was their child, basically. You know, the people can't even turn their mics on Zoom or off properly, and then they talk to me like I'm dumb. And it was always just like, this is insane.
Yeah.
You wouldn't speak
Yeah.
to a man like this.
Well, we've got a issue. I'm going to call it an issue in Australia where they want everyone back in the offices full time, and
Same here.
the fact is the workers don't want to, and it's not working for people to be back full time because let's face it, it's the biggest issue for women because they have to go and do kid pickup. They have to do school drop. Well, not saying dads don't do school drop up or pick up, but it's predominantly the woman's
Women deserve
responsibility.
flexibility.
And kids want their mum. And it's in my career, it was always a woman running out the door because they got a fine. They get penalty money if they're late to pick up their child. It's a real big issue in Australia, childhood care. One, for the money of how expensive it is. Two, for
Mm-hmm.
how low paid the childcare workers are. So I don't know where all that money's going. But anyway, I digress. So the other issue is how this career is defined. So, by Fair Work
Mm-hmm.
Australia's definition, they restrict the profession's skills to recording, typing, calculating, invoicing, billing, charging, checking, receiving, and answering calls, cash handling, operating a telephone switchboard, attending a reception desk, and administrative duties of a clerical nature. According to the National Skills Commission of Australia, clerical and administrative workers provide support to businesses by organising, storing, manipulating, and retrieving information. Like, that's not what we do.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually ever done any of that. I've never done
Mm-hmm.
invoicing and billing. Well, I do now, my own company, but
As a business
um,
owner, yeah.
yeah, I never did cash handling. I obviously operated a telephone switchboard when I was a receptionist and attended a reception, but I was a receptionist. I never manipulated or retrieved information. I mean, I went into a computer and typed in what thing I was looking for. But like, if this is what they're saying is the definition of what we do, how are we going to earn more money? Like,
Well,
these
and
are
that's the thing.
government agencies.
People have no concept of what the executive assistant role is, and I think that's really evident when we talk about AI and people are talking about like, oh, it's going to replace us. And I even see this like in the education where it seems like even people who are teaching executive assistants how to utilize AI don't even really fully know what the actual skill or like what the things that they're doing as an executive assistant. Um, because every company utilizes their admin so completely differently. And it really is just whatever they feel like they can let go of. It's just, these are things that I don't want to do. And I feel like I can easily offload it. And yeah, like there's no definitive way that an EA is used. It's like this is so much of like what people argue about with chief of staff is like, oh well, an EA is not a chief of staff. A chief of staff is not an EA. Well, can you please tell that to the founders who have turned EAs into chief of staffs, and not in title, but like in like their duties,
Mm,
because what we do, so many of us, is so much more strategic than like these clerical that are like, being listed off. Like,
yeah.
we're event planners, we're project planners. I was looking at job postings earlier and like they want you to like know Adobe like design. It's just there's all these like skills that there's no such thing as an entry level job anymore. I don't know the last time I saw a junior level role. It's junior level pay, but we need you to have experience. Oh, here's something I'm really mad about right now. Okay, I hope everybody hears this.
Go on.
There's an
Here we go.
influencer. There's an influencer local to me, and she just recently announced that she's hiring an executive assistant. And a couple people sent me the job posting because they thought I might be interested because I mean, she seems like she's really cool. I've enjoyed some of her writing in the past. I don't have like any personal beef with her, but the pay was $25 to $30 an hour, and she has like a international audience, I'd say. So a lot of the Americans, because they live in states with $7 minimum wage, are like, wow, that's such a great pay rate. Thank you so much for your pay transparency. Uh, I would Okay. Also, so it was $25 to $30 an hour, a max of 24 hours a week. It's not a guaranteed. It could be 17 hours some week. It could be 3 hours the next week. You don't fucking know. It could be all over the place. It's not enough for benefits. So I'm making the assumption that it would be like you would be doing your own taxes. Like you'd be an independent contractor essentially. So like there's not like benefits outside of the $250 that she gives you for ministerial product, which like that's a lovely perk. Don't get me wrong, but actually I can just buy my own tampons if you pay me a living wage. Um, and to the point that like I literally sent her an Instagram message, like a very polite Instagram message, and I was like, I really value you and your work. I love the company that you're working with because the company that they're working with, I actually went 3 rounds of interviews with for their operations coordinator role,
Mhm.
which was also severely underpaid. But so I really think this is once again a situation of we don't value women, despite the fact that like we are women and we say that we do. No concept of what this role actually should be paid because she wanted an experienced executive assistant. um she wanted somebody that's going to be able to like drive her business forward. Girl, $25 to $30 an hour is not drive business forward money. Like that is, I'm going to answer your emails within like I don't know a couple business hours. I'm not going out of my way for $25 to $30 an hour. And it just makes me so mad, especially to see like women exploit other women that way. Of like, I bet you think that you're worth more than $25 to $30 an hour because I've seen influencer rates, and I know that you do. You value your time quite a bit more. And that's also just like a trend that I'm generally seeing lately, where is they won't commit to a certain amount of hours. They're just like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I really need anybody for like more than like 15 hours. And this is once again why I think we should be independent contractors. Because how many organizations have I sat at, literally sat at, and not been utilized? And this is such like a common thing that I hear from admins where they're like, I'm working for this CEO. They don't give me any work. They don't give me access to do anything. Like all I can do is like I'll like run their schedule and like answer the emails that I can answer, and like I don't get any chance to like do anything more. Um, and I lost my train of thought on that one, but I'm mad. I am very mad about it. That's
Well,
how mad I
look, the,
am.
the the whole point is that we have to keep the conversation going. And look, let's just do a little disclaimer here without like making sure that we don't look like white girl privilege. We do understand that if the $25 to $30 is a huge amount of money for somebody. It depends on where you live. But
When you
if
live in a
you're
place where the minimum cost of living, the cost of living is so high that you need to make $40 an hour to be able to get a one bedroom apartment,
yeah,
like people
so
to own the fact that if you are a business owner and you are buying hours of somebody's life, you owe them a certain standard of living. I hired a virtual assistant recently. I'm paying her 35 US dollars because she's worth it, and she's smart and talented and skilled. And can I commit to, unfortunately I can't commit to full-time hours right now. It's very much like, when she joins events and things like that, but she also has a full-time job. But I feel like I make up for it in the fact that I'm paying her what is a very good, wage for, especially like she's from Texas and the area that
mhm.
she's living in. But like even $35 an hour is what I would, when I was like searching for jobs on Upwork, that was like my minimum rate. And that's because I also get like a 30% bump from, uh, the conversion. But yeah, your living wage is going to look really different wherever you live. But I would be really pressed to find anywhere within Canada and even in the United States these days that like cost of living hasn't ratcheted up hugely in the past couple of years. And maybe what used to be a really comfortable salary at 52 is no longer your bills. You have more month than you have money at the end of the day. And there's single moms that I know that are trying to like pay for daycare on the salary, and pay for food, and like the food bank usage here where I live has just, they can't keep up anymore. Like nobody's getting paid enough money to live, and everything keeps getting more expensive, and we're really in a very depressing portion of our timeline. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
think yes, everything is relevant. So if you're in the Philippines and you're listening to this and you're like, you guys need to shut up. It's right. How much are your groceries? How much is your rent? Like it, it, where we live is so expensive. Personally, in Sydney, like look up how expensive it is to live here. It hurts my eyes to look at things here. Like I don't know
And
why. I think
before,
I've.
I was gonna say, and before
I
anybody
feel like
tells us,
London was cheaper than this. Like
yeah,
it's insane. It's insane. Well, I go to the groceries and I get like 6 items and they're like, "Oh, that's $50." I'm like, Sorry?"
yeah.
Anyway, look, the main thing is we need to talk about it and we need to ke and the other thing is while you're saying, go contract, if you do go contract, please don't offer free services.
No, never offer free
Do
services.
not
You have value.
do not pitch yourself at such a low rate because you may think, oh, that's how I'll get them in the door. You're not. That is, they immediately go, well, if I can start you on that rate, I'll keep you on that rate. Or they'll be like, oh, if you're, then you mustn't be very good. Like, please, please, please listen to us. Do not set your rate low. Set your rate
No,
at what you deserve.
you
It's,
deserve. So if you are working a job right now and you're like, I'm 85K a year, I want you to figure out what that hourly wage is, and then I want you to bump it up 30%. And that is how I would bill myself if I was doing hourly, which I actually don't even believe in doing hourly rates anymore. I believe in like doing project based work of like, how about you come to me with a task and I'll tell you how much that task is going to cost you. Because it's not like most of the jobs that people that come to me are like, I want you to answer my emails and be available for 40 hours a week. If you're not willing to dedicate that amount of time of my life because I have to be available to check your emails, I'm not willing to, do like by the way, also talking about like the low rates, it's like the cheapest clients are always the worst. The people that only want to pay you like $25 an hour are going to work you to the ground. They're going to absolutely abuse you. Um, and I'll be very transparent about the way that I moved up in freelancing, which was I would take a job and then I would continue applying to other jobs. And as soon as somebody was willing to pay me more, guess what? I'm moving jobs because you're a freelancer. And really, like, that's kind of the expectation. And that's how I went from making $25 an hour when I first became an virtual assistant because I didn't know like what I should be billing, and I didn't credit myself for the time that I already had like in the field. From $25 to up to $50 an hour, and that's just like for like general VA work, and that's not even mentioning like now that I've moved into recruiting. But it was very much just like, are you willing to pay me more? Cool, that's my new rate. That's my rate now, and I'm a $35 an hourly. Like I just because that's what you have to do. Like people, you don't owe loyalty to these organizations that treat you like shit. Like stop wasting away at an organization that doesn't see your potential. Because going back about to your comment about like you believe in like admin organizations within like or departments, I guess, is most admins I know here are in it like they're the only admin in the organization. They don't have any leading them in terms of like mentoring or showing them the way. It's just like I'm an admin and I support the CEO, and then they look to the CEO for career advice or like career advancement, and you're not going to get it.
Mhm.
You have to make your own advancement. You have to determine how can I market my skill today, and that's going to be how you get out of this rut and like how you start to actually make like a living good wage in this career, as well as like building a different career trajectory. Because how many admins do we know that are like, I don't even know what I want to do. Like I don't want to be an EA for the rest of my life, but I don't know how to get out of this role, and like I don't know how to transition to a different like career. And I think
And
that like
that's why I think
freelancing,
it's so important to be part of networks, to be part of
yes.
them, to be having these conversations to say, hey, what did you do? Like, how did
Hmm.
you become a freelancer? Well, you've got a story of it, and you've told it on plenty of platforms that people can listen to it again and again and again and say, this is actually what happened. This is how I got out of it. This is how I changed my life with it. But look, not everyone is in a position that they can go freelance. So if you have to stay
No,
in a corporate job and you have to, like in America, you don't have free medical,
health
so you have to
insurance.
stay in
Yeah,
a job for things like that. I get it. I totally get it. But just know your worth, and if you are in a situation where you do want to explore these avenues, all we're saying is just don't pitch yourself in a lower rate. I know it is the easy thing to do, but just don't. Like,
don't cut
talk to
yourself
me.
off at the knees. Yep.
Contact us, and we will
Mm,
help you.
please,
Please, just
calendar is
don't.
open. Book some time. We'll talk through how much more you should be making because
Yeah,
one
and
of the first people that I support, like I coached, like when I was, when I got laid off and I was kind of doing a bunch of different things, was a woman from South Texas, and she was making like the guy was CEO was paying her like $500 a week or something like really piddly, um, and like I want you to drive like 6 hours this way and do this, and I wouldn't like he wasn't paying her for like that travel time or anything like that. And the first thing I did was like absolutely not. Let's like redefine like what your role is, and by the way, this is like you should be asking for like $1,500 a week. And you know what? She got it. She went from making $500 a week to $1,500 a week because we made a very strong case. Um, because they don't expect you to ask. That's the thing too, is they're always like surprised when you come to them and you're like, hey, I did my research. So do your research, bring your facts, because that's always going to be the thing is they're going to be like, well, how do you know this? How do you know like what another admin makes? Well, because we talk now, because we have the internet and
yep,
I have access to data.
yep. And as I said, just make sure you're talking about it. Make sure it's being talked about. Like in Australia, I think it was this week. There's a women's platform called Women's Agenda, but it's like a news platform. It's not just all about. Well, it is mainly about women, but it's a great platform. Anyway, an admin called Marika Garten wrote an article called "Fair and Equal Pay: Admin Professionals Need More Than a Fancy Job Title." Like,
Oh,
I literally reached out to her and I was like, "Great article," because we
yeah,
need more people talking about this. We can't stay silent on this topic, otherwise, nothing's going to progress. So
yeah,
write the blog, make a post on LinkedIn, tag us. Like, we want to start the conversation about making sure that admins are paid correctly and making sure that admins are paid for their their contributions to companies as like, especially if you were to map out what you actually do in your role versus what the job description was that you were given when you started, like,
Hmm.
wow. So it's just off the soapbox now. It's just like, if we can help you, please reach out. Like, d- feel free to join the admin collective as well. We've got free and paid memberships, but the free membership, you're welcome to join if you can't afford it. But also you can use your learning and development budget, I think it's called, um, to pay for memberships as well. Please always remember that you can always use that for your any memberships you want to join, not just the admin collective, but the admin. We have conversations about these. Like we are the most open group of people, because we're all backing each other, and we're from all around the world, and we're all like, okay, how do you do it? How this do it? What are you paid? Well, like it's an open discussion, and it should be. So don't be afraid to talk about money. Don't be afraid to be talking about uncomfortable situations that you're feeling like, oh, I've been asked to do this, but I feel like that maybe, and I feel kind of grateful. No, talk about it all. Talk about it all, and bounce the ideas off other admins, and they'll give you the feedback that you need, because
Yeah.
it just needs to be talked about. Don't ever be taken advantage of. Is is the key messaging out of this very long key messaging. But look, as I said, we're in a place of privilege where we live in first world countries. Um, you know, we we do earn good money for what we do. Um, if you're in one of the countries where it's not that easy, I get it. But as I just said, there's Upwork platforms where there's people from all over the world looking for freelancers. Doesn't matter where you're from. It's all paid in US dollars. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's paid in US
So
dollars, which is nice.
so check it out. Like if that's what Jess said, if you're not being paid right and you can earn more money as a contractor on a platform like Upwork or Fiverr or there's plenty of platforms out there now. Check it out. Like make it see if that's worth your while. But
Yeah.
there's options.
Knowing
That's the
is
kind of
power. Just having
knowledge is
that
power.
knowledge is like 50% of the battle. And yeah, I like I said, fully recognize privilege of like where I live. I do think that like I have a wide variety of like I lived in a very low cost area in Texas, and then I moved to like a higher cost living in Texas, and then eventually I moved to Canada, which has a completely different economy and even higher cost of living. Um, but it's why it's so important that we as white women speak about this is that we are the least likely to suffer consequences. There's not much that can be done to me at this point in time as an independent business owner if I talk shit about CEOs and pay levels on LinkedIn, and if I continue to start conversations versus BIPOC person, trying to like they put themselves at a much higher risk. So it's kind of our duty to be discussing like you deserve more, and I want to advocate for you to get more. Not because money is the only thing that matters in life and it's like the only thing that makes a job good, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to tolerate a job when they are paying you well. When you are just like tip tapping on your computer and you're just kind of crying a little bit, and then you're just like, well, I am making like $50 an hour just to do this right now, so I'll be okay. So it helps. It cushions the blow a little bit. But yeah, it's so important to discuss these things. And if you don't have any, other admins in your organization to even be able to, compare yourself against, like it's hard to know, like what should I be getting paid. So knowledge is power. Just know what I used. I'll tell you the website that I used to get my information, and it is executive-assistance.org, and they are a London-based organization, the Institute of Executive Assistants and Administrators. And they have it broken out by several different countries. They break it down by when in the United States, they break it down by like the area that you live in. So like if you live in the Midwest, you're obviously going to have a little bit lower of a salary than somebody who lives in New York. So you're able to get a benchmark a lot easier. I think that I find this website really hard to find via Google, but like it's great. It has great information on it.
Hmm. And there's also a World Alliance. Um, it's
World
missing out of
Administrators
my
Alliance,
head.
right?
Yeah, World Administrators Alliance that also has um, some fantastic information in there. Look, for me personally, I find it hard to fit in this, probably because I've gone out of it. Um, but I also find it hard because in Australia we have so many different bands and we have so many different structures that limit you. But one of the things that I will kind of make prevalent is what they advertise is that the administrative profession has 160 job titles in it.
Hmm.
So go and check it out because chances are you're in here. And there's so
Yeah.
much information on it. There's a global skills matrix. There's associations and networks, all sorts of things in there. So that's also another really good one to check out. And Lucy Brazier and Helen Monument, who run that, are always so happy to talk to admins. So look, everyone's willing to help. So if you ever
Yep.
need help, sing out. Like, don't ask, don't get as well is my key
Empty
messages.
mouths don't get
Don't
fed.
ask, don't get. Like,
Yep.
anyway, we have preached the preach, and just getting back onto a bit more of a light-hearted ending for it. Um, I think that Jessica should come out to Australia. Who else
I think I
thinks
should come.
that?
I think I should come to
Who thinks
Australia.
that we should start a petition that Jessica should come out to Australia? I know that people from all over the world are listening to this, but can you just imagine Scare and I sitting in front of the Harbour Bridge with our headphones on, with an Aperol spritz even,
Will you call me
down on
Nate?
Bondi Beach, running on Bondi Beach? I think we could make this happen. I think we get a petition, get Jessica to Australia, summer 2024. That's like really soon.
Summer? Your summer or my summer?
Yeah, my summer. It's
I don't
like
know what
we're
month
in our
that is.
last. Well, next week is August, as we discovered. We're just looking through some dates on this, and
That's
next
spring,
week it's
right?
August, which is completely scary. But yeah, we've only got one more month of winter left in Australia. So I hate to say that for
We
you
got one
because
month of
summer's
summer
great
left in
over there,
Canada,
but it's beautiful in Canada when it's when you're not dealing with snow, shoveling snow and things like that, such things. But still.
for sure.
All right. Well, I think that's it for us. We'll put some show notes of some of those addresses we talked about as well, in case you didn't get to write them down. Um, and I think that's about it on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good rant. Good
All
time.
right. Good
Just
rant. Good
absolutely
rant. And I mean,
bitching.
that's absolutely what this podcast is. As I said, it's not an educational podcast. It's about two chicks that work in the industry that hopefully you feel like we're just talking the shit chat that you would have talked with your admin friends. And if you've got anything that you want us to discuss, please write to us. Let us know. Happy to talk through things that you might not be comfortable saying publicly. Um, Also, both of us have public profiles, so feel free to reach out to us on all the platforms. Jessica's latest baby is Threads. I love it.
That's
I only
beautiful.
check it every now and then, but I can see Nick Ginsburg and Jessica McBride is just.
I haven't been on it as much the past couple of days, but yeah, I do. I enjoy just having a void to spill my innermost thoughts into because I use a journal. Just use threads.
No, put it out there on the interweb.
For all to see.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we will chat to you soon. Have a great
Yay!
day or night wherever you are. Bye.